The 2020 football season, which bled into 2021, will always be remembered as the most chaotic, frustrating, bewildering, and just weirdest one we've ever seen in the history of Michigan high school football. But time may also reveal it as the one where the state champs Mr. Football race became more relevant, interesting, talked about, debated, and flat out entertaining in the 13-year history of the award. Back in mid-November, following the third week of the playoffs, which determined district champions across the state, the season was shut down to the never-ending COVID-19 pandemic. A month passed, and with seemingly no hope to see the season to its conclusion, the majority of all the major awards were handed out across the state. We held out as long as we could, but when it seemed all hope was lost, we chose to announce the Mr. Football Final Four the week of Christmas. And as we rang in the new year, so too would we have named the 2020 Mr. Football. But as fate would have it, on the day our Final Four was to be announced, we got a statement from the MHSAA the season would see its finality with the final 3 rounds of the playoffs taking place in January. That changed everything. The race was back on. 8 of our final top 10 candidates would have a chance to play their way into the Final Four. Following the state semifinals, the new Final Four would emerge. 3 of the 4 advancing to the state championship game. And even Christian Reed and his Tigers were a hair's breadth of getting to the finals and sending Donovan Edwards and his West Bloomfield Lakers packing. At the state finals, there was more chatter about Mr. Football than ever before. We had conversations with many, including the players involved, on who should be the 2020 version of Mr. Football. It must be said, the 2020 Mr. Football race was the most competitive to date. All 4 finalists, even some of our non-finalists, had incredible seasons, each one deserving of the crown, but there can only be one. And as the week following the finals had many waiting with breathless anticipation, as we do here at State Champs, we kept it a closely guarded secret. What seemed like a routine end-of-season get-together turned out to be the big reveal. We are at an undisclosed location, something you will find out very shortly. And this has been a long time coming. So let's find out who is this year's 2020 Mr. Football. Oh, excuse me, am I interrupting? No. I'm very sorry. Would Mr. Donovan Edwards please stand up? You have been asking and you have been asking. Well, my friends, sometimes be careful what you wish for, but in this case, you earned it. Donovan Edwards, you are the 2020 State Champs, Mr. Football.
Yes!
Man, it means a lot. It means like I'm going down as one of the top players that came out of Michigan. This award means a lot to a lot of people, but I'm very blessed and I'm very thankful that God put me in this position.
When his senior football season was halted in mid-November, Donovan Edwards had not yet announced his choice for his college destination. Edwards desperately wanted the opportunity to win a state title for West Bloomfield before his high school career was over. When many of the statewide awards, including the various Players of the Year, came out in late December, his name was absent from many. By signing and enrolling early with the University of Michigan, he might have put himself at a loss to change any of that, but the running back was motivated to at least try, getting himself a waiver from the NCAA to allow him to finish out his senior season, even if it extended past the start of classes at U of M, gave Edwards a chance to finish on his terms. And by his performance in the process of helping lead West Bloomfield to its first football championship, a 41-0 defeat of Davison, Edwards is just the second running back to claim Mr. Football since Oxford's Prescott Line did it nearly a decade ago. After head coach Ron Bellamy limited his workload for the early portion of the season, Donovan finished his senior campaign with nearly 1,700 rushing yards and 27 touchdowns, with a large portion of that coming since the resumption of the postseason in January, the biggest games of the year, win or go home. In the district finals versus MAC Red co-champion Sterling Heights Stevenson, Edwards rushed for 146 yards and 5 touchdowns, adding a receiving TD in the first half alone. When play resumed with regionals, he ripped off 245 yards on 19 carries, scoring 4 times in a win over Romeo. Against KLAA champion Belleville, the Lakers' postseason roadblocked each of the previous 2 years, and a team that allowed more than 2 scores in only 3 of its first 10 games, Donovan ran for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. And against a defending D1 champion Davison team that through regional finals had allowed just 5 rushing touchdowns and 725 rushing yards all season long, a new term was created: Domination. 14 carries, 257 yards rushing with 3 scores in just 3 quarters of work. Edwards set a new finals MHSAA Division I record in the process, 50 shy of the all divisions MHSAA finals record. His final 4 games of high school produced 798 yards and 15 touchdowns rushing, 1 receiving, against a slate of opponents that had come into their games versus the Lakers a combined 33-5. After the state finals, Ron Bellamy laid out his Mr. Football case for Donovan Edwards.
He's the most dominant offensive player that I've seen in the state in a very long time. Game plans are created to stop him. And for him to have the performances like he's had, and I think the state of Michigan is finally getting a chance to see Donovan Edwards. Not everyone's playing. So everyone's seeing this and they're saying, whoa, where's this been? Well, we just choose not to run him into the ground during the season. However, he's still productive. And I would say this, and yes, is this my way of trying to endorse my player? Absolutely. But there's no hiding the fact why West Bloomfield gets kids recruited into college every year. We don't use one player to do everything. We use multiple players. That's why we send 10+ players getting college scholarships every year. I'm not knocking nobody. I'm just stating facts. Donovan could play whatever you want to play on defense. When you're a 5-star, you could play any position. But that takes away from your Dylan Tatums, your Gavin Hardemans. So for us, we try to make sure that, we give everyone the opportunity to play, to be productive, be developed, and get a chance to play college football.
He knew what I could become. He knew I had some challenges growing up. So he always looked out for me, always guided me to who I am. And he starting the recruitment process too. Coach Bell started it for me. I remember the time he asked me. He said, Donovan, what schools are you very interested in? I said, but coach, if I went to school Eastern, West, I don't mean downplay any schools, but that was my mindset at the time. But anywhere could get me where I want to be. And he was like, you got to think bigger than that. You got to think bigger. And then, he was like, you're going to be one of the highest recruits ever, ever. One of the best to come out of Michigan, one of the best to come out of West Bloomfield. He gave me the confidence for that. Hearing that from the head coach, who had a lot of amazing talent already. Taj Mustafa, Colin Hurd, Bryce Beasley, Dwayne Thompson. Those were great players he had coached. Just to hear you're going to be a great player, that meant a lot to me, and that boosted my confidence.
Hours after the state finals, Ron Bellamy joined Donovan at Michigan as the newly named wide receivers coach. The dead period prevented Coach Bellamy from attending the presentation. But as it relates to college, in the recruiting world, Edwards recently received his 5th star from 24/7 Sports, which has him ranked as the #1 player in Michigan and number 32 in the nation, as well as the USA's 2nd best running back in the 2021 class. 44 offers from the most prestigious programs in the country. Donovan's father tried to help navigate those waters. In the end, it was always Michigan.
He had his mindset set. He liked going to the universities. There were some universities that he was tittering and tossing with, but he had his mindset on Michigan all the time. He had his mindset on Michigan. I mean, it was some other schools he really liked. Don't get me wrong, but he wanted to be a Michigan.
Oh man, I'm excited. We're gonna change everything. We're gonna change it. You gotta, as you said, you gotta speak into it what it is, and it's the mindset. I feel as though, man, we gonna change the world.
This award wouldn't be possible without the support of the pizza famous for flavor, Hungry Howie's. The best pizza in the state, honoring the best player in the state. Confidence can be sometimes confused with arrogance. If you want to be the best, challenge the rest.
I love my history about football, and I watch like Chad Ochocinco, he was a great player. Like don't nobody know how he is as a person. Like the way he entertained the game of football was different. And like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not about like I'm being cocky about it. It's just like, can't nobody guard me. Like his favorite line, like, can't nobody guard 85. Like, can't nobody stop number 6. That's how I feel. Like, I know that's how like many great players feel. Like, it's a confidence thing. Like, I just worked very hard after my sophomore season, really. After I broke my ankle, like, that's like, how, like, is this really, like in my opinion, in my mind, it was going to define me. Like, are you going to, like shine how you just did? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you had an okay sophomore season, and then, like, it's like, how are you going to bounce back from that? And I just feel like I just had to keep working over the summer, over the spring, to be where I was my junior year. After my junior year, I had to find more motivation in me to find, you know, to get a state championship, to be the best football player I could be. I'm just driven by anything. Like, I don't want to let people down. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people ride on me. A lot of people think of me highly. I think of myself highly, you know what I'm saying? I just drive myself, to be honest. And I do it, like, I also, like, in my mindset, like, I just drive for, like, you know, like, my brother, you know, like, my mother, my father, like, my family, everybody. Like, I want to just be successful for them, you know, just be a positive role model for them.
West Bloomfield's Donovan Edwards, state champs 2020, Mr. Football.